With beta branch version 1.8.0, we get a massive economy change, but we also get a big change to a lot of units, namely in the Khuzait line, both the standard and the noble line, as well as Vlandia. Vlandia gaining a whole change to the way that some of its troop tree actually looks. We've also gotten a slight change to the equipment on the mercenaries, the Skolder, as well as the lake rats. They've gotten a little bit of a swap around. They've lost their spears, I guess is a really good way of putting it. And on top of that, we also get the Palatine Guard, which has a second stack of arrows and some other fun things here that we're going to go through in this video today. So what we're going to do is go through some of those changes. We'll talk about them, if it's a nerf, is it a buff, so on and so forth. And then we'll kind of show off both Khuzait and the Vlandian changes, like I've said, and then kind of show off some other little miscellaneous ones here and there. I will link the thread that goes over all of those changes in the description below. So if you want to just kind of read for them yourself, you're more than welcome to. There's also been a ton of item name changes, and I'm not going to go over them in this video here. There's really no point in doing that, because it's stuff like iron plate pauldrons have now gone to iron plate pauldrons. Or bronze plate pauldrons have gone to the same thing. So most of it is just kind of fixing minor little typos here and there. Rumphalia is now called the Rumphia. Stuff like that, dropping letters, changing away things are. Like woodland cloak is now a woodland cape. Fringe cloak is a fringe cape. So again, like I said, I'm not going to really be covering that, but I wanted to at least talk about it because it is a lot, the lion's share really of that post detailing all of the changes that have happened to troops and items in version 1.8. So let's get started here with talking about Khuzait, then we'll jump into Vlandia before talking about some miscellaneous changes with the troop changes here, and again, beta branch 1.8.0. So with the Khuzait, we've mainly gotten a change on the archer, the marksman, the spear infantry, the spearmen, and some stuff with the horse archer and heavy horse archer, as well as the Khuzait Khan's Guard. So let's take a look at the archer here. They now have a brigandine vest. Before they had the reinforced, before they had the cured leather lamellar. I think that's this one. That's this one. Not stitch cured. Cured leather. So they had this before, which is 24, 6, and 12. Now they've got this, which is 34, 2, and 4. Obviously, the brigandine vest is much better, and they also now have the reinforced studded neck guard. What they're going to be gaining from that is, what they're losing from that is, no, I'm reading this wrong. Reinforced studded shoulder guards instead of the reinforced studded neck guard. So they're gaining some arm armor here on top of it, which is nice. And there's going to be some different tiers, of course, some different variations on this all throughout the way, mainly just kind of changing around the helmet. Now moving into the marksman, a little bit of an interesting twist here. So they have lost... They've lost the brigandine vest that the Khuzait archer have, and now they've got the cured leather lamellar armor. I guess this maybe is to emphasize that they are definitely truly more of an archer than the Khuzait archers. I'm not really sure why they lose the armor here, because they jump up in tier. So I find that to be a very interesting development choice, because they also get better shoulder guard armor here too. So very interesting choice to have the Khuzait archer have better armor than the Khuzait marksman. I would think it would be the other way around. So in fact, I look at this as a bit of a nerf for the marksman. He now is easier to kill, and I don't think that that's particularly good or fair. You're going from 60 athletics, 90 one-handed, 110 bow to 130 in all three of those, which is great. But again, a very weird kind of nerf for them. Looking at the spearmen, we have a bit of a change here too. They now have the stitch cured leather coat instead of the reinforced mirror armor. And what you're overall looking on that is an increase to their body armor. They're getting 4 more body armor, they're getting 5 more leg armor, and 4 more arm armor. But they now have the upturned fur cap. Prior to this, they had the Nomad helmet. I think this is the Nomad helmet. Yeah. So you can see that is... they're losing 21 armor on their head. That makes the Khuzait Spearmen a little bit more papery when it comes to headshots. Of course, they do get more armor across their body, legs, and arm armor. Overall, I guess you could say that it's like they've taken that 21 armor and mitigated it across other body parts, because they're getting some 14 armor in other parts of their body. So I guess kind of look at that as you will, as far as, is it a nerf? Is it a buff? I've marked it as a nerf because they're losing 21 defense on their head, and I think that's pretty substantial. But moving into the Spear Infantry, we do get a bit of a buff. They now have leather lamellar shoulder guards. Before they had the reinforced studded leather armor, so they're losing a little bit of armor here, but they now have the cured leather lamellar armor instead of stitched cured leather lamellar armor, or a stitched leather coat. So they used to have this armor, now they have this, so that gives them 5 more body armor, 2 more leg armor, and arm armor stays the same. So overall they're going to get more body armor from this, and I think it's a good move for the Spear Infantry as a whole, because Dark Ends are still, though, just juggernauts, right? Nothing's changed with them. Moving over into the Horse Archer, we have a bit of a change here as well. They went from the cured leather lamellar armor to now the Brigandine Vest, and that is obviously a substantial increase in their defensive capabilities. You're looking at 10 more body armor. You're looking at 8 more leg armor and 4 more, You're looking at 10 more body armor. You're losing 8 arm armor and 4 leg armor. So that is something to kind of, I guess, look at, but they overall get more armor from this. Then the Khuzait Heavy Horse Archer has the mirrored Brigandine armor, which is better than the Brigandine Vest, because you go which they had before. So now they get 36, 14, and 14 versus 34, 4, and 2. So a very substantial increase of 10 leg and 12 arm armor, as well as 2 body armor. But those are the increases here to the kind of base tree. Now, the only other thing that changed for the Noble line is that when you look at the Keshig, it has a step warbow. Upgrading to the Consguard, they've gotten rid of the step warbow and now have a step recurve bow. So that is a step down in damage potential. You're looking at 66 pierce, 95 accuracy. For these that do 62 pierce, 94 accuracy. So a little bit of a step down there. Again, interesting choice to lose a good bow as you progress up in rank, but I guess maybe they're trying to balance out the extreme tankability of the armor or whatnot, but it is just kind of worth noting that you do lose that capability. Also kind of worth noting now too is all of the Khuzait Wanderers, these 3 in specific here, they will now have simple sabers and iron sabers rather than fine steel sabers. This thing right there. And that means that they are cheaper to recruit. Their armor and arms basically dictates the price in which it costs to recruit them. So this makes it much easier for you to be able to recruit any of these Khuzait soldiers now. Let's pivot over into the Vlandia tree, which looks drastically different. This time we will start with the Noble line. The change here is with the Vlandian Squire now has a Morning Star rather than a spiked mace, which is a better weapon. Nice, because he does start at tier 2, not tier 1. So it's nice that he has a little bit better damage potential at the gate. Now the Banner Knight here has had a change to its helmet. He now has a full helm over mail coif instead of a full helm over laced coif. This is just 4 defense difference, but it is still worth noting that it is 4 defense more that the Vlandian Banner Knight now has. So let's go over to our Vlandian recruit here and take a look at this new look. So this, the entire tree is different, right? So it is way, I guess, more heavy on cav, as you would expect with Vlandia. And on top of it, you get a different progression. So the footman now progresses into spearman or light cavalry, a new distinction. It used to just be either cavalry or vanguard after you'd go into swordsman. And now, if you want to go down into more infantry, you go from the footman into the spearman, into the billman or swordsman, down into sergeant, and then and or Volgier or pikeman. So those 2 things are definitely worth noting here, because the light cav is a very strong little light cav unit here. It's tier 3, but it has a decent amount of stats with 71 handed, riding at 60, and polearm at 80. So it's kind of a nice holdover from getting access to any of your squires. It does give you potential to have a nice low mid-tier cav unit that you maybe want to take advantage of, rather than, like I said, going for squires all the time, which progress into Vlandian cavalry, which have been changed around a bit here too. Actually think these are brand new. The Vanguard was always there. But these are a bit of a different mix here as well. You're looking at 110 polearm, 120 riding with 80 one-handed. A nice mix of long fine steel spear, which is braceable, which is nice, as well as a ridged arming sword. Only one loadout here, but he does have good armor with the banded leather over mail. A nice little helmet too with the nasal helmet over mail coif, which gives him a nice good amount of armor. Low arm and leg armor, and of course there's no shoulder armor on him, despite the fact that we just got a whole bunch of new Vlandian shoulder armor. But the Vlandian Vanguard is then when we progress down to, which is of course a much heavier cav unit. Not as great as the Banner Knight, of course, but it still has 130 riding, polearm, and one-handed, so you get a very strong heavy cav unit without having to go find squires and jump down that long progression into the Banner Knight. So I like that as a bit of a change. It does really kind of change the way that the Vlandian line works, but I think it works a lot better in this regard, which I'm all about. Now, some other things that have changed here. The Billman now has 80 polearm rather than 60. Loses a little bit of crossbow to 35, which is whatever. And throwing is down from 45 to 35 again. That's whatever. But the Volgier has lost its two-handed weapon. So it no longer has a broad two-hander. If I go to all three of these, it does not have it. It just simply has its ridge-tipped arming sword. And that's okay. That's just fine. The Volgier is okay. I actually used to like the Volgier more than the Pikeman. But the Pikeman's now having the ability to do a spear wall, right? Like having to be able to brace that pike and actually hit into cav makes them very, very strong, especially with the ridge arming sword. They can do some good damage. The Vlandian Volgier used to be so cool because it had that two-handed weapon, so it was able to really have a good threat range on it. It does have some throwing with the Francesca, which is nice, and it has 80 throwing, but I definitely think this makes the Pikeman edge out a little bit above the Volgier, especially in open field battle, because I want to be able to use that pike to its full advantage. The only other thing I guess worth noting about Vlandia that has changed is the, let me see here, Vlandia Caravan Guard. These guys now have crossbow of 60, and I believe they are, oh no, it's Empire Caravan. The Empire Caravan Guards now can use light crossbows, which is really cool, I think. I can't seem to find it. Well, it's there. Oh, Imperial Veteran Caravan Guard. Well, maybe it's just Imperial Caravan Guard. There we go. Good lord. There it is. So these guys actually use light crossbow on horseback. I think it's the only NPCs in the game that do it right now. But very cool to see that added. So let's go into some other quick little miscellaneous changes and take a look at them. It is, I guess, also worth noting before we leave Vlandia. And this is something that is across multiple crossbowmen, but they now use the heavy crossbow as well as the boar veteran and boar novice, which are Vlandian mercenaries. But it kind of fits to be in this section anyway. But now let's pivot over to some miscellaneous changes. So you'll notice these Skulderers have had a whole change to their outfits. They now look like this, and like this. This is to kind of fit into the fact that they are, well, not Norse, but Nordish is the name of it from the game's perspective. So drilled two-handed axe with a heavy round shield. And they've got a bunch of distinctions here too. Armor kind of changes just very lightly with its shoulder pieces, but a broad blade javelin and a long war sword. The Warrior Broda here, a Northlander broad axe with its Norse round shield, Raider throwing axe, and then a pointy war sword. So a much different accoutrement across these guys. The first two recruits being a little bit more papery, with the last one being far tankier. Also, we do get a change to the Lake Rats here. Oop, that's the actual faction. Lake Rat Recruit, please. So Lake Rat Recruit has lost its military fork, but added an axe and another set of fish harpoons. The Rat Veteran has also lost its broad leaf-shaped spear, and the Wreckers have lost their jagged fine steel spear. They still retain their polearm skill, though, which I don't like one bit. Give that to their athletics. They have 55 athletics at tier, 4 here? That's trash. Like why remove the polearm and then keep the actual polearm skill? So I think that's a big change they need to make with them. Okay, if they wanted to make them as more of a skirmish style, heavy shock style unit, by all means do so, but make them have corresponding athletics. The veteran has more athletics than the wrecker, who goes down in 5 athletics. So I think that's a big crucial change to any of these item changes, is make these skills match these item changes. And then also, one of the last things I want to talk about is the Palatine Guard. So the Palatine Guard has been changed. It's been given a second set of bodkin arrows. This makes them quite spicy. So they've got 140 bow. They use a step warbow, which is very good, and they have bodkin arrows, which do 3 pierce damage, and have a stack of 24. That's 48 shots on these guys, right? Now, if we compare them to the Aserai archers, let's go to Archer, let's go to Master Archer. The Master Archer, I've always said, is probably the best archer outside of the Fiend. But we're looking at step recurve bow and piercing arrows, which do more damage. So they also have 20 more bow skills. So I think that it's truly going to be an interesting thing to see how the Master Archer stacks up to the new Palatine Guard. Now that the Palatine Guard has that extra set of, or extra quiver of arrows, I think that makes them way more viable. They get that whole extra 24 shots. I think it is absolutely great. But this covers, for the most part, all these big changes. You get other things like the Mercenary Swordsman and Hired Blades. They get some armor swapping, and I'm not really don't really care about that, I guess. And also some naming to stuff like the Mamluks here have lost the E, so it's M-A-M-L-U-K-E rather than M-A-M-E-L-U-K-E. So that's some kind of stuff there. These guys are supposed to have some of the new mace items, but I don't see them as far as what the patch notes said, so I think that's kind of interesting there. But for the most part, these are all of the changes. The biggest ones, I think, are definitely with Vlandia, right? We get all these changes to the way that... oh, that's not a recruit. To the way that this whole entire thing works out. Pikeman, there we go. It's branching into either pure infantry or pure cavalry, and I think that's a really good distinction, a really good change that we've talked about in my proposed changes that they've taken a look at. There are some changes they've already instituted into the game, and a huge shout out to Matt Ross for that, again, for helping me put that all together. But I like having this pure line of cavalry. I'm not reliant upon squires for Vlandia, and I can still do some cool, fun, almost said cute, fun cav play with Vlandia in a big way. But go ahead and let me know what you guys are thinking about these changes in the comment section below. As always, I would love to see a pass like this done for Sturgia and for Britannia, as well as maybe the Imperials. But I think that we've already got a little bit of a shift with Britannia, and I think that still it's much more is needed, much more tweaking is needed. And again, just to kind of hark on it, skills are the biggest problem I see more than anything, because skills don't really match up with the equipment, especially when we just took a look at the Lake Rats, right? They lost all their polearm, but they didn't get those skills allocated anywhere else that they can actually use. Yes, they can now prioritize picking up polearms off the ground because they have high skill in it, but I would like to see some of those skills kind of be streamlined and brought in line with their equipment accoutrement. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.